Welcome to the Disruptive podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. Minority Innovation Weekend is a weekend summit dedicated to aiding minority innovators launch tech-focused startups, exploring emerging technologies, and showcasing tech startups that have a minority founder or co-founder. During each episode, we will discuss innovation, news about tech startup, as well as the startup ecosystem, and interview people of color throughout the startup ecosystem. Welcome to the Disruptive Podcast, MIW Disruptive Podcast, hosted by Michelle, Sir Walter, and Jerome. Today, we got a special guest. She's been a top 40, under 40 in Miami, a registered patent attorney, and a managing attorney at IPS Legal Group. I'm talking about Joycelyn Brown. How you doing, ma'am?
Thanks for the introduction, Jerome.
All right, so Michelle, you want to kick it up?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joycelyn, super excited to have you on board and have a conversation with you. We had the pleasure of kind of talking a little bit, and very curious. How does an engineer who focused on semiconductors for the last several years pivot and go to law school and now really lives and breathes all things patent? Like, what did that transition look like? Why did you choose that, and how did you end up where you're at now?
So it's really interesting because I worked in the semiconductor industry for a very large company in Austin, Texas, believe it or not. And while I was there, I realized that the semiconductor industry, as with most manufacturing tech industries, is very cyclical. So you have these like really steep upturns where there's a lot of hiring, a lot of business growth, and then the market becomes flooded with the product or service that's being provided, and then there's a very steep downturn. What I was looking for was job security. And I thought about the skills and the resources that I have that I'm bringing to the table. And I really took the time to think about what career would match my intellect and skill set. And I thought the law, and that's the reason why I took that path.
Very cool.
So it was a natural step of progression. So it's very rare when you have a lawyer who leaves, the practice of law. I mean, the actual engineering world. It's very rare when you have an engineer who leaves the engineering world to go into the practice of law. Sorry for that fumble there. But it was just logical to proceed with patent law because lawyers are a dime a dozen. You're always going to find a family lawyer. You're always going to find a criminal lawyer, right? You're always going to find even a tax lawyer. But how many patent lawyers do you know? How many people can you say actually does patent law? You'll find intellectual property lawyers who do trademarks and copyright work, but you don't see that many patent lawyers.
That's interesting. How else are you leveraging your background? Are a lot of your assignments, are they focused towards semiconductors?
No, my patents can be broken up into a variety of different classifications, right? So you have inventions that relate to mechanical, that relate to biochemistry, inventions that relate to semiconductor. So because of my background, I'm well versed. And so I deal with all different types of patent work. What I do is if there is a patent that comes across my desk, and if it's beyond the scope of my expertise and experience, I'll consult with another patent attorney that has that necessary expertise. So case in point, I recently, just last week, drafted a patent application that related to COVID. I can't go into details on it for confidentiality purposes, but there was a lot of biochemistry that was involved. And so I needed to bring on another patent attorney to consult with that. And then we successfully drafted a patent. I will say that this particular patent, I believe, is going to be a game changer with respect to how we are currently testing for the coronavirus.
That's awesome. Now, For those who have products that they want to bring to market, can you describe the difference between a patent, a trademark, and a copyright?
Yes. So case in point, what we're doing right now, like this recording, like this podcast is going to be fixed in a tangible medium of expression, meaning that it is going to be fixed in audio. It's something that can be distributed. That is what qualifies for copyright protection. Anything that's fixed in a tangible medium of expression. So, for example, if you have a song that you're composing, and if you sing that song, if you create it, develop the lyrics in your mind and you just sing it out loud, you have no protection. But as soon as you write it down, you're protected. Now, and so copyright protection is automatic, basically. It's automatic. As soon as it's fixed in a tangible medium of expression, you automatically have copyright protection. The only thing is that you cannot sue anyone for copyright infringement unless you have registered the copyright, right? Trademarks and patents are a little bit different. A trademark protects the business name or slogan. That's it. And it has to be associated with either a product or a service that is currently being used in commerce. So if I have a business idea and I want to trademark that, then I would need to file the appropriate protection application with the USPTO. But it has to be something that you either are going to be introducing into the market or something that already is in the market. Now, a patent specifically protects an invention. So we're talking about something that's tangible, something that can be used, something that's innovative. So if you have developed a new and novel chair, so let's just say that you've developed a chair that anytime you sit in it, there is some sort of mechanism. I'm making this up, so whoever's listening to this can take this idea and run with it. But you sit down in the chair, and there's some sort of mechanism that automatically conforms to your body shape and the comfort level that you need. And let's say it's automatic. You don't need to input anything. So that means if you lean back, it automatically adjusts for your spinal posture, all of those things. That would be patent protected. That's a really good idea. I should move forward with that.
Yeah, become the next billionaire. So a question that I have for you is, especially for entrepreneurs of color and underrepresented entrepreneurs, many times this is kind of the first time on this journey of entrepreneurship, and either you don't know or you don't have the resources to take care of these important steps. So can you talk a little bit about the cost versus the value of ensuring patents are properly taken care of, and like what advice you would give?
So that's actually a really good question. Patents can be expensive if you are not working with the right group of people, right? So one of the things that I encourage people to do is just kind of think about, how do you intend to use this? A lot of people come up with these ideas and they say, hey, I'm going to patent this and then I'm going to sell it. Well, and if you plan on patenting it and selling it, you have to be prepared to take on the upfront costs, right? A lot of things have changed with respect to how companies buy intellectual property, and just even how intellectual property is used just overall, right? So companies are less likely just to buy an idea unless they know that it's already been patented. So if that's your goal, just I'm going to invent something and I'm going to sell it, right? You really are going to have to take on that upfront cost, and with the expectation that you take on the upfront cost and then you're going to get a return on your investment later, right? For people who have a business and they have a product that a patentable product that is used as part of that business. So going back to this chair example, right? So I have a furniture company and I've developed this innovative chair. If I don't patent that chair, that means that anybody else can patent it and then they can sell it. So I lose the opportunity to reap, financial profits based on that innovation. And then the third way that people can really profit, and the kind of the expectation of the cost versus the benefit, is a patent is a business asset. All intellectual property is a business asset, right? If Coca-Cola if Coca-Cola were to, the actual company that operates Coca-Cola, if they were to stop production and they wanted to sell the Coca-Cola name to anybody, the name alone is worth so much just because of brand recognition. The Starbucks name alone, this is just the trademark. It's worth so much just because of brand recognition. So when you put time and effort into building up brand recognition or building up product recognition, right? And then you decide to sell the business, you can that increases the sale price because there's an independent value associated with the intellectual property. And that includes the patent work.
Thank you.
That's interesting. I read somewhere that you could possibly lose your IP rights if they aren't enforced. How does that work exactly?
So there's this, I love these questions because I've been involved in so many different cases. I could get like just super excited. So basically, if you squat on your rights, you lose your rights, right? The law does not reward the lazy. So I'll give you an example. You know Pandora, the bracelet company, right? Everybody knows Pandora. So you guys may be too young to remember this, but way back in the 90s, that same company, Pandora, they were these little jewelry sellers in the mall. That's where you would go to get like your earrings pierced and stuff like that. It's the same company. You would go and get your earrings pierced. So what happened was there's the original Pandora that had the Pandora trademark. They're located in Broward County in Florida. They licensed their name or allowed this what we call Big Pandora. They allowed the Pandora that we know now to start using their name. Well, Pandora was using their name. Pandora got really, really big. And then little Pandora said, hey, wait a minute, you are infringing on our trademark rights. And Big Pandora said, well, under the doctrine of latches, which is, if you snooze, you lose, basically. Under the doctrine of latches, you were aware that we were using your trademark. You did not object. So therefore, you can't do anything about it. I was working for the federal judge that handled that case at the time. And literally the week after the decision came down in favor of Big Pandora launched their global campaign. It was amazing to see. And little Pandora lost out on their intellectual property rights. The same is true for patent work, right? So for any patents, if you don't preserve your patent right, if you don't go after the people who are infringing, you only have a certain amount of time before you can sue for patent infringement or trademark infringement or copyright infringement.
So do you typically represent like large corporations, universities, startups, independent inventors?
All of the above. All of the above. I like working with people that are interested in growing. And it doesn't matter where they are in their stage of growth, as long as they want to elevate beyond that. So I do work with inventors, innovators, startup companies, and also established companies. And my goal is to come in and to protect their legal rights, right? Protect them, shield them from liability, protect their rights, protect their intellectual property, and also help them grow and achieve their goals.
And so what resources exist for entrepreneurs out there learning about patents and trademarks? And if, for example, I am someone that does have the chair idea that you have, right? I am that furniture owner. How can I check if someone else has already thought about this idea, if someone is holding on to that patent?
The first thing that I would encourage anyone to do is to do a patent search, to just engage a patent attorney and just to do a patent search. For a variety of different reasons, people are wary of the word attorney or lawyer. And so people are more inclined to go and work with like an invention help company, for example, right? The challenge with invention help companies is that they have their own agenda, right? And they may steer you wrong, or they may not do a job as far as doing the patent search and the research, getting people up to speed on what they need to do to protect themselves. They may not provide all of that information to the individual. So I would simply encourage people to find a good patent attorney. You're talking to one of them, right? Find a good patent attorney and start with a patent search, right? A patent search gives feedback onto anything that's currently out there on the market, as well as anything that's previously been patented. It's a common misconception that just because you haven't seen it on the market doesn't mean that it hasn't been patented.
Sure, that's good advice.
Hey, Joycelyn, thank you. Is there anything that you wish we would have asked that we haven't asked yet that maybe up there in your head?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, particularly now, just with what's going on in the economy, a lot of people may have ideas and they may have business models that they may want to launch or inventions that they may want to protect. I would simply encourage them to take a minute just to educate themselves. There's a lot of material that's available online. I'm actually in the process of launching a company that is aimed to help startups. It's going to be a resource platform with documents and instructions and videos and content to help startups and inventors kind of like get the information that they need to launch, right? And so I would simply encourage people just to take the time that they have now, and just learn as much as they can about the business that they want to break into. And if anybody has any questions, anybody is more than happy to call my firm. My firm is IPS Legal Group. We did the introduction in the beginning of the podcast. And I do free consultations. And I'm more than willing to help to walk people through the steps that they need to get to where they need to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being our guest today. You know you have to run.
That was really short. You guys don't have any other questions for me?
Yeah, we do. We have a ton of questions for you, but we want to be respectful of your time. I mean, I think that a lot of the pieces around it, I mean, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that especially when I speak to patent lawyers, I hate saying this, but the first thing that happens is like my eyes start to glaze over. And then I've been on a couple of conference calls before and webinars where I'm learning about this stuff, and it's so important, right? Like if you don't have protection and going back around even from like your company name to a slogan or something that you invent, it can really hurt your business and close you down.
Yes.
So I think like one of the big reasons is I've always been afraid of attorneys. I'm sure a lot of people have. But one, I don't know if I necessarily have trusted them in the past, and then the cost. And those have been two big barriers for me. Like,
yeah.
Can you, I don't know if this is an acceptable question, but could you talk maybe a little bit about like what the mindset should be around cost, and maybe any budgets that you would recommend, or anything that we as entrepreneurs, people should prepare for?
So I think the first thing to do would be to shop around, right? If you talk to an attorney, talk to more than one. A lot of people are drawn to, this really big firm. Well, larger firms tend to charge more. And then you also have, so that's one, so shop around. The second point of advice would be, as far as like managing costs, identify what your budget is, the maximum amount that you're willing to put out, and then talk to the attorney about that and what the attorney can do for that. It's quite possible that the attorney can either direct you just different resources, right? That's one. The other thing is a lot of bar associations, like when I say bar associations, like for example, the Florida Bar. The Florida Bar has a patent pro bono project. So for people who don't have any money whatsoever, but they have an idea, there are several patent attorneys, and I'm one of them. I volunteer my time through the patent pro bono project with the Florida Bar. They are willing to help entrepreneurs still get protection over the protection of the patent or the invention or whatever the intellectual property is at a discounted rate or for free. And the only thing that the individual has to do is just pay for the filing fees. So what I'm saying is that there are so many different options. There are so many different options that are available. And so it's just a matter of just really exploring them. But the fear may be valid, and the fear might be misplaced. I think it's important just to make sure that we identify the the source of the fear and kind of overcome it, because you don't want the fear to hold you back from doing what you need to do, to either getting that bag, to getting the money, to being the next person on the cover of a tech magazine, right? You don't want that fear to stop you from getting there.
Thank you. It's really helpful.
So do you have to run now, or can we continue?
Yeah, we can continue for a couple of minutes, just for a couple of minutes. So we can take a few more questions.
Okay, so one question I have for you is, what information do you evaluate before the company enters a business partnership with new vendors?
What information do I evaluate when a company enters into like a joint venture or a business with
business venture?
Okay, so business venture is different from like working with the vendor, right? So just real quick, so working with the vendor, that's just somebody who's offering you a service. You just need to assess whether or not the value of what they're providing is worth the cost that they're demanding, right? And that's just a simple contract. Regarding doing like a joint venture or a business partnership, what I evaluate, or I assist my clients in evaluating, is what is it that they are trying to get out of the relationship? What is the other party trying to get out of the relationship? What percentages are fair for any type of like profit share split? If people are starting a new company, then we're talking about equity. If it's just a joint venture, then we're talking about the share of the profits. So we kind of assess which model makes the best sense based upon the business that they're conducting together, right? So for example, if it's just going to be a term business deal, like 2 years, and there's no interest in forming a new company, then it might make sense to do a joint venture. So if you do a joint venture, then you have to think about, okay, it's going to be this amount of time. What is it that we need to do? How is it that we need to get this done? And I usually just send over like a questionnaire to the parties, have them answer a couple of questions for me, and that gives me the framework that I need in order to draft the necessary documentation. Does that answer your question?
That does answer my question, yes.
Joycelyn, I have one last question. I guess when you're working with clients, about how much time do you spend, I guess, training them? Because this may be their first time being exposed to intellectual property protections.
So when you say train, like that's kind of like a loaded phrase, right? I provide them with access to resources. My website has access to resources. I have several blogs that I've written that kind of gives a summary of different types of intellectual property and things that they might want to consider. And they're drafted to where they're easily consumable, like no more than like 1,000 words, right? But when I work with clients, I take on the clients and I actually care about what's going on with them, right? So I care about their business, I care about their growth. And so in our conversations, the fact that I care and I'm equally as invested in their success, that comes through. And so it's less of training and just more of just continual conversations. And it depends on the person, right? It just depends on the person. It depends on what's going on. Any other questions?
I think the bases have been covered. Thank you so much for your time and for the opportunity to speak to you. I think that this conversation, as I shared before, I've been on a couple of webinars around trademark and patent. I think this was the easiest to digest and understand. And you did a great job at providing like tangible resources and breaking down that misconception and fear around something that is, to me, so foreign.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. And I know that this was just a little bit short, but if you guys have any further questions, or if you want to talk, kind of like specifically about, like a startup checklist or something like that, I'm more than happy to speak on that. So just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
That wraps up this episode of the Disruptive Podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Check us out online at www.minorityinnovationweekend.org and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. MIW 2020 is coming up on Saturday, October 3rd to the 4th, so head on over to www.minorityinnovationweekend.org and register for MIW 2020 today.